Good afternoon. This meeting is being recorded. This is First Fridays with OFO. Today we will have Lori Grant, Assistant Director for the Agency Oversight Division, covering the use of the 2019 Excel template, the MD715 Excel template. Lori?
Thank you, Lisa. Before I get started, I just want to verify whether the captioning should be working.
Yes. And it may just need to be synced. If not, I will place a link for the captioning. I will grab a link and place it. Our captioner is working on it. In the meantime, I will place a link for the captioning to be launched in a separate window.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So welcome everyone. Thank you for joining me this afternoon for basically Excel Template 101. And I'm going to use this hour to talk about how you utilize the Excel template to upload your workforce data into EEOC's Federal Sector EEO portal. So the Excel template is one of three methods to upload the MD715 workforce data in FedSEP. The template will validate the data to ensure that it has internal consistency, and if the data passes validation, the template can then be converted to an Excel file, which can be uploaded into FedSEP. So I am going to share my screen. And I hope everyone can see FedSEP. And I'm on the guidance page here. And when you scroll down to the MD715 heading, you can find the Excel template under option 1. And when you click on this, you'll want to save the file because it's massive. And then you'll transition it to your own Excel hard drive, your own hard drive, and save it to your file. Lisa, can you hit next screen for me?
I did.
Okay. When we use the Excel template, what we're trying to do is allow agencies to have a way of manually uploading the data rather than pulling the data from their personnel systems. And what you'll need to do is ensure that once you open the Excel template that you've enabled the macros, because at its core, the Excel template is a spreadsheet, however it has macros. When you open your file, hopefully you'll see enable content here. If you do, then just click on it. If you don't, you'll need to go to File, and then Options, and Trust Center Settings, and then click Disable All Macros with Notifications. So that means it will then generate this heading when it pops up. So I'm enabling the content, and due to the size of the document, it's going to take a while for it to open and save. It's just very big. And if you do need to share the template with anyone, I would suggest you either create a zip file or upload it to a shared file storage system of some kind. FedSEP can also work in that way. Next slide. When you look at FedSEP, when you look at the template, you're going to notice that it looks different than normal. In previous years, it had drop-down headings and sub row headings. So when I'm here on table 1, worksheet 1, you'll see it's a flat row now and another flat row. Before, there had been a column here that showed whether it was a number or a percentage. We had to do away with all of the subheadings in order for the template to be fully 508 compliant. The other thing about the format is many people were expecting it to look like the 2.0 tables. We decided to build off of the Excel template from the previous year for 2 different reasons. One is that some agencies had requested that we do so because it would alleviate them from having to totally rebuild their generated reports. And then the second reason we found is that it's a lot cheaper for us to do it this way. The end result is that when you upload the XML file, once you've passed all the validations and you upload the XML file, the 2.0 tables will appear in FedSEP. So it will collate all of the data and shift it around so that it looks the way it should. And in that respect, too, the inclusion tables, the inclusion rates will appear for Table 1 and Table 9 concerning the separation data and the awards data. The other thing I wanted to point out is that when you look at the worksheets in the template, I'm not sure why, but the contractor decided to skip some of the worksheets. So if you scroll over, we eliminated Table 10 from the previous report, and that had been on worksheet 10, so that's disappeared. The other worksheet that's disappeared is Table 13. In fact, Table 14, which had been the separations table, and that was simply relocated. So while it appears there are 20 worksheets, there are really only 18, and 2 of the worksheets are disabled. I hope that makes sense. But once you've put all of the data in and the report is generated, the worksheets will combine to look like the 2.0 tables. Next slide, Lisa. Here I've put together a crosswalk for the 2.0 tables and the worksheets. So when you look at worksheets 1, 8, and 16, which is the new separations worksheet, those will all combine into Table 1 for the 2.0 table. Similarly, Table 6 will include worksheets 6, 7, and 9. That's the major mission critical occupations. Table 7 will include worksheets 11, 12, and 15, the senior grades. Table 8, the management positions, will include worksheets 17 through 20. Next slide, please. So how does it work? There are really 5 steps for uploading the Excel template into FedSEP. The first one is you need to complete the profile tab in the template, and I'll go over each of these steps. Type or copy and paste the data into the worksheets, pass the data checks, convert the template into an XML file, and upload the XML file into FedSEP's aggregate page. Next slide. On the Profile tab, and I will show you where that is. So the Profile tab, and this is a dummy report, so all of the information's made up. I selected DOJ, Executive Office of the U.S. Attorneys, entered their agency code, and typed in 2019. If you do not include these three pieces of information, you will not be able to upload the XML file into FedSEP. You'll receive an error message. The other parts of the profile page, if you are using a status and dynamic file, you'll need to check this box because this will tell FedSEP that you're not intending to complete any of the tables except for the applicant flow data tables. If you're using, if you have an alternate pay system and you wish to fill that out, you can make a selection among these choices of which ones you plan to use. Next slide, Lisa. With respect to entering data, there are really two key points that you'll want to pay attention to. If you're copying and pasting data into the template, so I'll move to table 1, worksheet 1, you notice there aren't percentage symbols among the data that's on this table. There are no dollar signs when I go to the awards page. The reason for that is it could end up breaking the template, which will then lock the template. And I'll explain what to do if that happens. But the main thing is up front, make sure that the data set that you have does not include typed in percentage symbols or dollar sign symbols. The other thing that you'll need to pay attention to is that when you're copying and pasting data, so if I was copying this and I wanted to paste it on the same place, if I right-click my mouse, I can just come over here and click paste. The problem with doing that is if you're taking the data from another document, you're then bringing the formatting from that document into the template, which can also break the template. To avoid having that problem, make sure that you use paste special with values. And I'm not sure how everyone's Excel spreadsheet is set up. For us, we can just click the symbol with the 1, 2, 3 on it, and you see underneath where it says values. What that does is it just brings the data and it excludes the formatting. If you don't see this icon with the 1, 2, 3, you can click paste special with values. Well, excuse me, paste special, and then toggle down and click values. And then you'd hit OK. I find it easier to just right-click and hit the icon, and if you can set it up that way, it's much faster. But it's better to be safe than sorry, and make sure you use the paste special with values. Now, if your template locks, really the only solution is to import the data into a new template. Thankfully, you don't have to do that manually. Next slide, Lisa. There's a data import function, a tab, at the bottom of the template. And if there was another template that I was going to import into this one, this would be a new template, nothing in it. I would come over and click Import Data from another MD715 Excel tool. And then I find it in the library and click Open. It will show you how many data records have been uploaded into the new template. It typically takes about 5 minutes to do this process. The other thing you want to keep in mind is that it will only allow you to import data from the same fiscal year. So if you had data you wanted to import from 2016 into a 2019 Excel template, it will not accept it. Next slide. The Data Checks tab is probably the most crucial tab in the entire spreadsheet, and it really serves 3 purposes. The first one is if you're a small agency, you can check this and fill the blanks with zeros and manually type in the numbers that apply, so you don't have to type zeros every time. The one that you'll become the most familiar with is the Validate tab. When you're typing in the data, FedSEP is automatically doing checks of every cell where this data check applies. So for example, if I was on table 1, A1, and I'm looking at the total workforce prior fiscal year, all column, you'll see 11,374. If I come back to the data checks, you'll see that's this number right here in value 2. In value 1. Value 1 is the data that you input. Value 2 is the data that FedSEP thinks it should be. And that calculation occurs using the formulas in column J. So here on the first row, you'll see male plus female should equal the all column. And in this case, from A1, 4,754 plus 6,620 equals the number in the all column. And when you do the data check, it comes up as green. If I were to change this number to 6619, the data check automatically shows that you failed. And it shows you why, because this number is now 1 less. So as you're doing your data, or as you finish, it's up to you, you'll want to periodically check in and see how FedSEP is see how the Excel template is identifying whether you have any errors. Some you may not be able to check until you've entered all of it, because it will compare the A tables to the B tables. And I am scrolling down. Well, I guess you'll just have to take my word for it because it's not jumping out. But the data checks will compare the totals from the A column to the B column. And if those numbers do not match, you'll receive a fail on those rows. So let me go to the next slide, and I will show you the most common problems that occur within the template on the data checks page. And if you have any data that's missing, it will show up as a 0 in value 1, and value 2 should tell you what it thinks it should be, which would mean you'd have to then go in and verify that that's actually the number it should be and enter the number. If the A and B totals do not match, that will also be an error. I've found that typically happens when you have unspecified race, national origin, or gender in your data set, and as a result, those individuals are not included. So either the total number for the A tables will be lower than the B tables because you've subtracted them out, or the totals may be the same, but then the columns do not add up, the sum of the columns, because there is no place in the A table for unspecified race, national origin, or gender. If you have that situation, you really have one appropriate approach, and that's to follow the visual identification process that is in 29 CFR 1614. If you're unable to do that process and correct the data during the fiscal year, then the only other option to submit the template would be to use to put the unspecified individuals in the 2 or more races. But that is only a temporary fix. That it's crucial that the agency identify the rank, race, national origin, and gender of each employee. The next common error involves when the total columns do not equal the sum of the other columns. One example involving this type of issue is on the B tables, and I'll show you on the B tables. So looking at table B1, I've noticed that some agencies include the targeted disability column almost as one of a standalone data set, when in fact it's a subset of disability. So the 54 people in the people with targeted disabilities should also be included in this 444 number, because when you add together no disability, not identified, and disability, those 3 numbers should equal the total. When they don't, typically it's because 54 of the people from disabilities are missing. That's just one example. Other examples of the columns needing to add up can be found throughout the A tables. Total females and total males must add up to equal the all. And then similarly, all of the EEO groups based on males will need to add up to the total males, and the females will need to add up to the total females. Just some examples that the system, the spreadsheet is looking for internal consistency. And then last common issue involves the use of subsets. So, for example, table 1 has permanent and temporary as subsets. Those 2 numbers together, so if you're looking at prior fiscal year numbers, the temporary prior fiscal year number and the permanent prior fiscal year number must equal the total prior fiscal year number. The same concept applies for officials and managers. Each of the 3 rows must equal the total. And just so you know, none of the applicant flow tables are included in the data checks. And the reason for that is the applicant flow tables are basically climate assessments. The people are not required to submit their applicant flow data during the hiring process, so agencies may have inconsistent numbers. It's entirely possible that the total number of people hired is larger than the number of applicants, because the only number that the agency knows is the total number of people hired. You could have a situation where every single applicant declined to share their demographic data. So that's why we disabled the data checks for those tables. Next slide, please. Once you believe that you've completed all of the data, there's a really easy way to come through and ensure that you have passed all of the data checks, and that's to click the Validate button. And the Validate button, I think I disabled it when I was showing all, but will sort all the way through your table to identify which ones have failed. So if you failed the first one, only that one would appear. And before you try to generate the XML file, you'll need to ensure that you click the Validate button one last time and that none of the rows show up with fails. when you've successfully completed the data checks page without any fails, then you can click the Generate XML file. And this, it should be someplace where you can find it pretty quickly. Here, I pick my desktop, file name, DOJ, EOUSA, and I recommend having some sort of version control in it. If you have to redo the template for some reason, then you'll have a record of which XML files you've used. So you could go by date, or you could go by number. So let's do 001 and save. And it's pretty quick because it's a small file. Next slide, please. So now that you've generated the XML file, you're ready, you think you're ready to upload it to FedSEP. And what you'll do is go to the MD715 dropdown. Let me go to this version, MD715 dropdown, and this is our test site, so you know. So if you're from EOUSA, don't worry, we're not loading this into your database. Aggregate, and normally you won't see select agency. This is up here because it's the only way we can sort through the data, and it should automatically pop up once you log in for EOUSA. And here you'll see different login and upload attempts. And what you'll do is you'll click Browse, and I put it on the desktop. Here's the XML file. I click Open, and then I'd click Upload and Process File. Some reasons why it may not successfully upload include, well, let me get to that on the next slide. So next slide, Lisa. You'll see two reasons right here. The profile data is missing, so you'll want to go back to your template and make sure that you have all the 3 required pieces of information on the profile page. Save the template and then generate another XML file. If you get an error that says that a major occupation is missing, and I'll show you how that looks right here. Hopefully it won't take too long. What it will mean is that on the MD715 Workforce Data Major Occupations page, that page did not include all of the occupations identified in the Excel template worksheets 6, 7, and 9. And what you would need to do is open the validation error file to find out which ones are not there, and then you'll need to go up to the major occupations page and add those occupations to the system. So I'll show you how that works. Major occupation. And once again, you would not need to do this. And what the series that's missing is 0950, and title, I'm going to make one up. You would get this from PDF, the series title. I'm going to go back to the Excel upload area, aggregate. And here you see the data error. When you open it up, this is the file that the series that's missing from the major occupations, and it says 0950 major occupation code in XML does not match with the list of major occupation codes. One thing you need to keep in mind is if it's more than one, it continues to go to the right, so I don't want you to miss that. It's probably better to copy and paste it and put it someplace like in a Word document so you can see the entire message. But since I've already added the 950, then I can re-upload the template, and it should here it is. It should recognize that it's on the major occupations page, and once it validates, it should upload. It should also send you an email when it successfully generated the report. And you'll see that when you go to MD715 report. And DOJ, and it would appear here under pending. It takes often a few minutes for the system to generate the report, but it will send you an email. Next slide. So we've identified two pending issues with the current template, and I'm sure many of you have already as well. When you go to table 6, you'll notice that it has space for 6 grade levels. And many agencies are reporting that they need more than 6. At this time, what I would suggest is that you put the top 6 highest grade levels in this space, which if it starts with SES or 15, then it would go down from there until you reach the end. I've seen some agencies go 15 down to, let's say, 11, and then put other at the last 2 rows. That's really the only thing that you can do at this point. We've asked the contractor to update the template to include additional rows. However, I'm not sure if that will happen during this reporting cycle. I will let everybody know as soon as I find out whether that's a possibility. The same issue also occurs in table 17, where you have the executives, managers, and supervisors with grade levels. If you have more than the 6, start with the highest, and then you can perhaps put other at the bottom so that it shows that there are additional ones. And then the last error that we found is when we replaced the wage grade in table 5 with the salary data. The wage grade was supposed to move to the alternate pay system tables here at the end of the B tables. And unfortunately, that did not happen. So that's also part of the fix that we've asked the contractor to make to the template. I don't know if that will happen during this reporting cycle. If it doesn't, then you would have really 2 choices. One, convert the data somehow to GS, or leave out the wage grade for this reporting cycle. if we believe that the template will be updated, I will let you know. We are granting extensions for our agencies pretty liberally this year. So as long as the report is submitted by September 30, or as long as your extension is by September 30, we'll approve it. I do not anticipate that we will extend the deadline for all agencies. However, you can submit an extension request in FedSEP, and I'll show you where. If you go to MD 715 extension requests, and that will allow you to submit the request, and we will approve it as long as it's up to September 30. So if you prefer, you can wait. I'm hoping to find out in the next week about whether the template will be updated, and I will send out an email once I know one way or the other. Before I open the forum up for questions, I received some questions from an agency, and I thought I would share them with you. The first one is FedSEP enabled to receive data uploads multiple times from the template? The answer is yes. When you are in FedSEP and you go to the workforce data aggregate, and you'll see that here the template was uploaded multiple times. Each time you upload it, it erases the previous version that was uploaded. So here where it failed, it's now been replaced by a successful upload, and the table is now generated on MD 715 reports. And this is where you'll see it. Just so you can take a look at the table. Here it is. It shows up as a 2.0 version, and it's hopefully a little easier to read than the template, but it has all of the data that you would expect to see in the 2.0 version. The next question is, what should agencies do if there are rows to accept certain sheets, but we do not have data for the rows? For example, several of the major occupations are permanent status only. When you are in the template and you'll see that there are B6P for permanent and B6T for temporary. You do not need to have the same occupations for the permanent and the temporary. They can be different sets. However, the A and the B must have the same occupations. So what you enter for the A table for the permanent has to be the same as the permanent for the B table. Another question, let's see. Can you confirm that the persons identified as persons with a disability outside of the self-identification on 256 are allowed to be included under the disability column? The answer is yes. You can use the data from other sources for the demographics in the tables. The one thing that you should be aware of is that when you're supplementing per the regulation data for the disability column, the numbers must still add up. So if you knew that you had an additional 10 people with disabilities who are attorneys, then the 10 must come from somewhere else. Most likely it's not identified, but that's one area that I would point out is the numbers must still equal the total when you add together no disability, not identified, and disability. One person pointed out a typo, and I'll show it to you, table B16. Here at the bottom where it says Schedule A permanent workforce, it says inclusion rate. That should not be, that should be eliminated, the inclusion rate. It's calculating for the participation rate when, I'm not sure why the information is there, at least on the template. And then the last question, can you confirm that sections about new hires in mission critical occupations, senior graded, and leadership positions, OFO does not want us to report the persons onboarded during the year. The instructions state that when you're looking at the hiring, and here for new hires in management level, the selection number can come from your personnel system because that's definite. Those are the people that came on board. You had 10 vacancy announcements, 10 people were hired, and you can document this in your personnel system. The rest of the data comes from the applicant flow data. So that would be the voluntarily identified, the external, the qualified applicants, the referred applicants, and the interviewed applicants. So those are the key questions I wanted to share. I'll open it up for other questions from the audience.
Alrighty, so Lori, we have a few questions that are in the chat, and I don't know that you had an opportunity to get through all of those. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the very top of the chat, and hopefully I won't be posing questions that you addressed as I was attending to other things.
Unfortunately, I wasn't able to see the chat while I was doing the shared screen.
Oh, okay.
So I couldn't respond to the questions as I was going.
Okay, perfect. So we should have no problem. All right, so let me see. I'm going to go to the top of the chat. And for those of you that have raised your hands, if you would, please be patient. And as soon as I ask a couple of the questions in the chat, I will switch over and begin to answer some of the raised hands and give you microphones so that you can pose your questions. All righty. I'm trying to get to the first question. Okay. Alrighty, some of these are not questions for you. Hold on. Okay, someone said that some of the fields show fail. Some of the cells in the blank data check already show fail. Is that a problem?
No, that's not a problem because it's probably checking to see whether data exists. There are certain data checks that check whether some data has been entered in certain cells to show completeness, that the cells the template is complete. So until you put data there, they will show as a fail, at least those particular errors.
All right. Okay, thank you. Someone says, the next person says, I have some specific questions. Question 1, table A3, other officials and managers category is missing. This is a significant category for my agency of 3,000 plus employees. I look back at 2018 and it's there. Please advise next steps.
It's missing from the template? I'm not sure I understand the question. The template should show the different executives, managers, and supervisors. We removed other officials and managers from this version of the instructions, and those individuals that would have been in other should be dispersed in whichever remaining category is appropriate.
Okay. And let's see. My agency totals won't ever match the sum of the categories because we have an option for did not respond when asking race data, which the template does not have as an option. That's just a comment.
Yes, and that I talked about earlier, where agencies are required to capture race, national origin, and gender. If they do not have that for individuals, then they need to follow the visual identification process.
Okay. Someone says, I've already copied the applicant data flow into the various charts, and they are showing percentage signs. Can I import from the spreadsheet I updated to a new version to correct this?
Probably you would need to upload that data to a blank regular Excel spreadsheet, and it depends on how the data is in there. If it's in there because of the formatting, so for example, if I wanted to format this row, and I did the right click, and you'd have the format cells, and then you would come over and select percentage, and the percentage would pop up. That you can easily fix. The other way to do it is a little more complicated. You would have to copy, paste special. I'm trying to remember how I did it before. There's a way to do that where you can eliminate the percentage symbol. I think you would have to do like some sort of possibly an edit and replace. I'd have to look that up and see how we did it before, but it is definitely more time consuming to go through and remove the percentage symbols.
Okay.
But you need to have the clean data to put it into the template. Otherwise, you've probably already broken it.
Okay. And Lori, you're no longer sharing your screen. Is
No.
that intended?
Yeah, that's
okay.
fine.
All right. Okay. All right. So real quickly, we'll move over. We'll leave the questions in the chat momentarily, and we'll take some questions from individuals that have raised their hands. The first person with a raised hand is Tim Foster. Mr. Foster, I'm opening your mic. Your mic is open. Mr. Foster, if you have a question for Lori, your mic is open. All righty, I'll be muting your mic and moving to the next person with their raised hand. Ginger Holmes, your mic is open. Ginger Holmes. Yes, we just need for you to adjust your volume a bit. We can just barely hear you.
It's all the way up, unfortunately, but once you get closer, is that better?
Yeah, maybe you need to get a little bit closer to your computer if you're using your computer's microphone.
I am, and I'm right on top of it now. I just have a question because we have multiple persons working on different versions of these templates, updating either, me for the applicant flow data, others for the NSC personnel data on employee workforce and things of that nature. How can we combine or merge those?
Ginger, your audio went out.
One complete version for submission into FedSEP.
I'm sorry, is there any way you could repeat the question?
Is there a way, because we have multiple people doing updates to different versions of these updated templates, how can we merge those 3 templates into one complete spreadsheet for loading into FedSEP?
The only way that I know of would be to copy and paste. I think you would have to pick one that is going to be the one that you use, and from the other 2, you'll have to copy and paste them into the template. Because if you tried to import, it's just going to delete over what you have in the I'll say the master template.
That's what I was unfortunately hoping you wouldn't say, but okay, thank you.
Sorry.
Okay. Thank you, Ginger. Okay, our next question is from Brent Bailey. Brent, your line is open. Brent, if you're there, your line is open. Okay, we'll be muting. Richard Toscano is our next question or comment. Richard, your line is open. Richard, if you still have a question for Lori, your line is open.
Hello, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. Lori, several months ago, EEOC had said that they would engage various payroll providers, including the National Finance Center, to ensure that there would be an appropriate interface between the payroll providers and being able to populate these data tables. To my knowledge, NFC has done nothing to reconfigure its system to ensure that we can abstract data from our payroll system to be able to populate these data tables. So what was the outcomes of those discussions with the various payroll providers?
Actually, they're at various stages of developing systems. So NFC is working on it. We've been in, I believe, in almost like weekly communication or frequent communication, I should say, with NFC to help them create a system, the template that they could then upload the status and dynamic file directly to an EEOC website. So that's in the works. How quickly it will get done, I do not know.
So are you saying that
But it is happening. And I can say it will happen before the next, it'll happen by the next reporting cycle. I do not know yet what the time frame is for this reporting cycle.
So are you telling me that all of the work that needs to go into populating these tables is going to have to be done manually because there is not the appropriate reconfiguration of payroll provider systems to populate these data tables?
That's a different question. I was talking about the upload function, where we've been working with agencies to develop the status and dynamic files. Whether they've created reports for agencies to use, that I don't know, and I can ask them the next time I speak with them.
You know, because
Or I'll send them an email and find out the status.
Because these payroll providers have always had the appropriate reports, if you will, to account for EEOC's data tables. But with such a significant change and these data tables just coming out recently, obviously there's not enough time for them to reconfigure their systems. So if that's the case, and then across the government where they're dependent upon NFC or other payroll providers, the work would have to be done manually.
Right, and let me try to communicate with NFC, and I'll find out the status.
And for large agencies that use payroll providers like NFC, that's going to be an almost near to impossible task.
I understand. Hopefully,
Thank you
they
so
can,
much.
make the change.
So I certainly would appreciate a follow-up whenever you have additional news.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you,
Sure.
Richard. In that vein, we've got a question with regard to IBC status. I don't know if you would have an update on the individual ones, or if that is something that the various agencies can look for to come out from AOD soon.
If you could you open Denise Swingler-Sweet's mic? She's from IBC and she can discuss it.
Oh, certainly.
She's on this call.
All righty. Denise, I'm opening your mic in just a moment. Let's see. Denise, your mic is open. You may need to adjust your volume, Denise, but your mic is open. Okay, so I'll leave her mic open. Denise, let us know once you've connected your mic. What you may need to do is go to the very top of your screen, click on the drop down next to the microphone, and make sure that the microphone selected is the one that you are currently using. It may default to your laptop or computer and not automatically pick up your headphones if you're using it, or vice versa. So while Denise is working on that, we have two more questions, and then perhaps maybe a couple more from the chat. And then Lori, I'll be certain to send over all the questions from the question and comment pod to you for answer. But we can go as long as you like. Two people right now, Deanne, or I believe Deanne Williams, your mic is open. Deanne, if you have a question for Lori, your mic is currently open. Okay. Okay, Deanne, I'm gonna disable your mic, and please raise your hand if you still had a question for Lori, and we'll come back to you. The next person with a raised hand, and the last person is Ryan. Ryan, your mic is
can you
open.
hear me? Okay.
Yes.
I have a question. If we have missing gender information, how would we go about entering that information into the two or more race category?
You would probably have to put it under mail.
Okay.
Or more mail.
And then also, is there a place where we can enter?
Or, yeah.
Is there
right.
where we can enter disclaimers about the data, since we're only allowed to do the top 6 pay plans and grades, and then, missing data goes into the 2 or more categories? Is there a way that we can say how many people are going into those categories, like a disclaimer?
What you could do, one of two things, you could put that information in the executive summary, or you could upload the complete tables as a supporting document.
Okay. And last question, the alternative pay tables, are they required? Because I thought the salary table took the place of those.
I'm sorry,
the alternative pay tables, are those required?
They are, in order to allow us to see what pay plans the agency is using, similar to the GS. I mean, the GS is still required, even though we've added salary. But what it does is allow us to be able to compare all of the agencies together.
Okay, for all the paid plans we have. Okay,
If
thank
possible,
you.
yes.
Alrighty. Thank you, Ryan. Okay, so I'm going to try to get back to Denise before we go to the next person. Ryan, I'm just going to mute your mic or take your mic away there so that we don't have any feedback. Okay, Denise, I'm going to open your mic again. Your mic is open, Denise. You may need to adjust from you can do that from your computer, or you can go to the top, click on the drop down next to the microphone, and select the option to adjust microphone volume. Yes, Denise, I enabled your mic. It's open. Okay. While we're waiting on Denise, A. Vandell has a question.
Can Denise call?
Okay, someone's speaking.
Can Denise call my cell phone?
Okay, does she?
Is there a phone number that Denise can call?
Sure. Denise, you can call me at 202-808-6968. And I posted that in the chat, and I will be happy to put you on speaker so everyone can hear you. I'm standing by.
Yes, we're planning to have another webinar, I believe next week. Is the 10th the correct date?
It wouldn't be the
Lisa?
10th, but if you can give me another date, then we can do it that date. The 10th is not available.
Okay. So yes, we do. We are planning to have another webinar.
All righty. So I have Denise on the line.
Denise. How you doing? Sorry about the technical difficulties.
That's all right. Can everyone hear Denise okay? Denise?
Yes?
Okay.
Yes.
They can hear you.
Okay, that's great. I just wanted to mute my computer audio. All right. So, let me get my notes up because I was monitoring the chat as well. So, for those of you that don't know, I'm the project lead of the technical side at IBC, and we're one of the payroll providers that another agency had a question on. And just wanted to give you guys an update. We have loaded a set of tables into our production environment. You may see them there, but when we do our releases, we do need time to validate to make sure that things are okay. So we'll get a message out there to let you know when you can go in and start looking at the tables. I do agree with one of the comments earlier about the payroll providers and how we provide support. It's just not a switch. I do need to clarify that. It sounds great. We're doing the tables. They're going to be out there. What I can see from looking at the latest set of the Excel templates, we may need to do some adjustments for you just to make your life easier. On any of our group meetings, as we all know that the unidentified employees have always been issues with our particular table. And to manipulate that data to now transpose them into a full set of tables, can be very challenging. So that is something that we have not taken care of in our system. The best thing I'm giving you is that you can see that there are unidentified people, but now that I understand the input process better, where you're doing the copy and paste, you will have fails in that particular QA section of the workforce report. So if there's anything we need to do on our side to make that easier for you,
please make a note. Feel free to contact me or send me an email. On that note, however, I wanted to know from Lori, since you said that there are some things that the agencies can do, which is use visual identification. That's great if you're a small agency. They do that anyway. But I expect the agencies may want to go with your recommendation to put them in the term race. If IBC were to do that for the clients, is there anything we can get in writing for that? Because sometimes we get dinged for, I guess, codes that are put into the system. And if I can get that particular recommendation in writing, if the clients want that, we can possibly put that in the system for them. So that's a question for Lori. And then I do have some outstanding issues, guys, on table 3, table 7, and your table 8. We have never had table 2 for you to automatically populate into the system, but we are planning to do a table 2, but outstanding to date would be your table 3 and your table 7 and 8. So if you go out to the portal right now, you'll see a message that says EO system has been updated with updated tables, but I want you to keep in mind those mode, notice on when you can actually go into
Sorry, can't hear her.
One is through our web application. The other one is from our reporting system. You will go into our reporting system right now because that's where you can see the data. We can communicate better on issues. Our Cold Fusion application it does not have updates in it. We do have the FedSEP interface available. I'm working with one client right now testing directly with the programming team at EEOC. If you want to be in that testing cycle, feel free to call me on that part. I know I gave you a lot of information, but hopefully that gave you an update of where we are at IBC.
Denise, it's Lori. The only thing that would give me pause about you automatically moving them over, the unspecified individuals, is that the agency wouldn't necessarily know that they exist. So if there was a alternate version of the data, for example, the official data, that as long as the agencies can see unspecified employees exist, then they can click the other report that would automatically move them over to the 2 or more.
Okay.
I think that would be okay.
Okay.
But the main point is that's just a workaround. It's a temporary fix for agencies to do the visual identification so that they're no longer unspecified.
Right. Okay. And Lori, while I have you on the phone, if I can ask a question about the categorization of executive, senior pay, and senior grade levels. I know that that kind of
Sorry, you're fading again.
Typically are coded with supervisory roles, right? And that's appropriate for that table 3. But when you start using that same language throughout the rest of the report, so on table 7, you have senior grade levels. The assumption is that those folks, they're executives and managers. But when you get to table 8 and you talk about senior pay individuals, are those the same folks that you will also see in table 3 at the top in that management category?
The Table 3 management categories are the same as the last 4 management tables, the last 4 worksheets of the template. The senior grade levels are really just the top 4 grade levels in the pay plans. So for the GS, it's 13 through SES, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they are management positions. The SES probably most likely would be, but you can still have 15s who are not managers.
Okay.
So, for example, attorney advisors.
Okay. Lori and Denise, there are a couple of notes in the chat. We've had inquiries regarding whether the notes from the statements that you and Denise have made, I guess, on this particular topic, are those something that we could share with attendees at some point?
Sure, and what I usually do, kind of infrequent, we have what are called user group meetings, and we only hold those 2 times a year. I think it's appropriate that we have another special one for our users, and we've invited Lori in the past.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, we're probably going to need a different level of documentation. I usually do PowerPoint slides, but I will make sure that we have some release notes so that everybody can follow. And I usually put references if I get feedback from EEOC on my presentations at least. So we can do a combination of things if it helps the folks that are going to be using our data.
Alrighty. We've had a request for your email address for your contact information. Oh, okay. Looks like someone provided it for you. If you'll just verify that what's been provided in the chat is accurate. It looks like it's Denise_T_Swingler-Suite@ibc.doi.gov. Okay, wonderful. Alrighty. Lori, is that everything, Denise, for now?
Yeah, we can, I don't want to take over the call, but.
Oh, no. Any information is fine.
Yeah, we can, like I said, we can have a special meeting, maybe within the month to address any issues. But I am working with several agencies individually, like I said, on the FedSEP interface.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much, Denise.
You're welcome.
All right.
Thanks, Denise.
So Lori has been kind enough to extend her time to 1:30, and so we'll take just a couple of more questions. Any questions that we're not able to get to will be provided to Lori so that a response can be provided either to you directly or by way of FAQ, or possibly addressed on the next webinar that we have. And as Lori mentioned earlier, she was asking about June 10th. We will be able to do June 10th. We will do June 10th. And it will be at the same time, noon to 1 p.m. And if you are not currently on our mail list and would like to attend the session again, certainly reach out to us at fedenews@eeoc.gov, and I will type that in the chat so that I don't take any more time right quick. A. Vandell has had their hand up for a moment. A. Vandell, your mic is open.
Okay, can you hear me?
Just barely. If you could speak up a little bit more or turn up your volume, that would be awesome.
Okay, I'll try and get closer because it's maxed out.
Oh, okay.
My question is specific and comes from my supervisor. We were working on table A7P, for example, and that talks about the vacancy announcement. And so we need to know, so it has job series, and we'll use 1165 as an example because we have a lot of them. Do we do each vacancy at a time, or do we compile all of those vacancies per job series?
You would compile all of them per job series.
Okay. Alrighty, so there were just a couple other questions. If there are no other there is a hand raised. Robert, did you have a question? I'm enabling your microphone. Robert Hambrick. If you have a question for Lori, your mic is open, Robert. Okay. Alrighty, Amy Kane has a question. Amy, your mic is open. Amy, you may need to adjust the volume on your microphone, but your mic is open. Okay, I'll disable that microphone. The next question that we had, in the chat for you, Lori, so bear with me for just a quick moment, was how big will the XML file be that is generated? Can that file be sent over email or only zipped?
I think it has to be zipped because it will not enter EEOC email addresses. There are other agencies maybe have a bigger email address, but we can't accept it.
Okay. Alrighty, there is a question for the pay plans, grade information for MCOs in management positions. We have more than 6 to list. What do we do with other pay plans and grade information?
I recommend using the top 6 highest grade levels. If you have multiple pay plans per occupation, probably the easiest thing to do would be to combine them if they're similar or related. So that it might be, for example, GS 12/WG 10 or something, so that those 2 were the equivalent and that was the level. But I'd recommend doing that, so it's the top 6 and then leave space for other. As I said in the comments, we should hopefully find out in the next week or so whether we'll be updating the template to include more rows. So I'll let people know when that decision's made.
Okay. Another question is there a naming convention to upload the template?
No.
Are smaller agencies still doing tables 1 through 5 only?
Yes.
Okay. So there are a couple of these that are very specific. I'm going to kind of skip over those because you'd have to go back to the spreadsheet, but I will provide those to you. Let's see.
Okay.
Does a second upload just replace the data, and does that work for an upload that did not find errors? In other words, can we upload a new version of the data once we review the table output?
Yes, you can. Every time you upload the data, it replaces the previous version.
Okay.
So if the previous version was successful and the new version was not, then it would no longer, then the pending would, I believe the pending report would disappear.
Okay. Go ahead, were you saying? Oh, okay. Another question is, since NAF info, non-appropriate fund info, is not being used, do we need to submit any information?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Since NAF info is not being used, do we need to submit any information?
You need to submit NAF as part of the total workforce page. So for example, the NAF employees who are permanent would go in the permanent, be combined with the permanent workforce, and the NAF employees who are temporary would go with the temporary. And then however they fit in for the other tables. We're not, the tables are being compiled regardless of funding source. So all of the funding, regardless of how employees are funded, they'll all be considered in the same report.
Okay. Final question. Last year we had trouble with .pdf output from FedSEP. Has this been addressed? So output to Adobe.
That I don't. I hope so. I hope so.
Okay. All right.
What I would suggest is email me, or that way the PDF should be 508 compliant this year. I can send you a test PDF that I've generated, and maybe you can see if you can read it. So that might be the easiest way to test to see if the PDF issue's been fixed.
Lori, I noticed one final hand, and that is from Christopher. Christopher, you will be the last question for us today. And again, we will have another webinar next week, June 10th, noon to 1 p.m. And we will send out the link to join that webinar on, I can get that out to you probably no later than Monday for all of those who are on our mail list. If you're not presently on our mail list, I've put the email address in the question and comment box. You can email us at fedenews@eeoc.gov to be added if you're not currently on our list. Your mic is open. Christopher, if you have a question or comment for Lori, your mic is open. We'll give you a moment to adjust your volume if need be.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, excellent.
Yes.
So I think you might have just answered it about the NAF just now. So essentially, we should be having NAF employees on, like if we have them on most of our tables, then not just limiting them to tables 1.
Right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right, thank you.
Right. All righty. Thank you. Well, thank you, everyone, and a special thanks to Lori Grant for presenting today on the new Excel template. Really appreciate your time, Lori, and especially the extra time that you devoted to the webinar today. Again, Lori has advised that she will be able to be back with us next week on the 10th. And so if you would like to join us again to hear some answers to some of the questions that were posed in today's meeting that we did not have an opportunity to address, certainly join us, and also watch your email. I'm going to turn over our mail list to Lori so that she's able to provide those FAQs or any updates that that she puts out in the coming weeks with regard to the template. So again, appreciate you so much, Lori, and thank you everyone for joining us this weekend. Lori, did you have any parting remarks for the attendees?
I just want to thank everybody for signing in, and I appreciate all of your hard work to adjust to the new template. I know it's not the easiest thing to do, and we are available to provide assistance if you have any questions.
All righty. Okay, thanks again, Lori, and thank you, everyone. Have a fantastic weekend, everyone, and join us again next Wednesday if you have additional questions or you just want to hear this, hear Lori go over the spreadsheet again, the template again. Again, we appreciate you so much for supporting our training and outreach. Have an awesome weekend and see you soon or talk with you soon. Thanks, Lori. I'm going to end the meeting.